Color Guard advance. Color Guard, post the colors. Post the flag of the state of North Carolina. Post the flag of the United States of America. Color Guard, honor your flag. Please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color Guard dismissed.
And welcome, and thank you so much to the Girl Scouts for introducing some ceremony into all of this. We, the League of Women Voters, aren't used to such ceremony and such treatment, so we can enjoy it while we have it. So thank you. My name is Alana Pierce, and I am the board president of the League of Women Voters. And we are very honored to have an amazing panel of speakers here and amazing audience. We're really glad to bring all these people together to talk about women in government. Just briefly about the League of Women Voters, we are a nonprofit that started with the fight for the women's right to vote in 1920. We are now dedicated to empowering and educating voters and defending democracy. This includes things like advocating for change in our democratic systems that suppress votes or do not provide fair political representation. Informing voters about the offices and candidates for each election, particularly through our website vote411.org and through our candidate forums. And providing educational events on how our government and democracy works and how you can participate locally. This particular event, as you know, is a panel discussion of women in government and their experiences. We will have an introduction for each panel member, and the panelists will discuss their roles and personal journeys in working in government. Then everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions. I will come back up to the podium. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. And then we'll have microphones just to make sure that everyone can hear the questions. So there will be people with microphones in each of the aisles. So just go to the microphone and ask your question that way. And then after the questions, we'll convene out in the lobby for meet and greet. And so you can talk more with your representatives if you didn't have your questions answered or you just want to talk to them in person. If you are able, there is a donation jar in the lobby to support the expenses of this event. We are all volunteers and these events are supported by your donations. Carol Covington will now introduce the Girl Scouts, who will introduce each of the panelists.
Dr. Sally Ride, NASA astronaut, Girl Scout, and the first woman in space, never set out to be a good example of what girls could accomplish. She admitted in an interview, "I never went into physics or the astronaut corps to become a role model, but after my first flight, it became clear to me that I was one. And I began to understand the importance of that to people. Young girls need to see role models in whatever careers they may choose, just so they can picture themselves doing those jobs someday. You can't be what you can't see. You can't be what you can't see. That is why we are here this afternoon. We want our girls to see and to hear and to understand what it means to choose a career devoted to a life of public service. Thank you to our most distinguished panelists for giving up their afternoon to share their stories and answer our questions. Your very presence, your willingness to share your journeys with us will no doubt plant seeds of possibilities in the young women here, will inspire and show them what they can be. For that we are most grateful. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. It is an honor for the Girl Scouts to have an opportunity to collaborate with our League sisters to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Our groups are proud of our work to empower girls and women, but we also recognize there is still much hard work left to do. We are ready. Thank you to our audience for choosing to be here this afternoon. As you listen to the panelists and learn about their journeys, think about your own possible future career paths. The panelists will welcome questions at the end of their comments. Please don't be shy. They are here to help you see what you might be one day. I now welcome Jessica Ballard, who will introduce our first speaker.
Senator Van Dyne grew up in the Chicago area and earned a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Illinois. She was the first person in her family to go to college. She also has a master's degree in business administrations from the University of Connecticut and worked as a system analyst. With her husband and two children, she moved to Asheville in 1992. Senator Van Dyne has been an advocate for the autistic community and involved with Meals on Wheels and the Pisgah Legal Service. She was appointed a senator in April 2014 to fill the vacancy caused by death of Senator Martin Nesbitt and won election for the full term in November 2014. Senator Van Dyne is a member of the League of Women Voters and was both a Girl Scout and a Cookie Mom.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Jessica. That was wonderful. So my name is Terry Van Dyne, and I have the privilege of representing Buncombe County, most of Buncombe County anyway, in the North Carolina Senate. And first I want to thank the Girl Scouts. I was a Brownie and a junior and a cadet. And there's just no doubt that the Girl Scouts have been a big part of who I have become. So I want to thank the Girl Scouts for being here, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters. They have really stepped up the last few years. I was always a member because I appreciated the work they did around voter education, getting information around candidates and the voting process out in the public. We depended on them in several states. But they've done something truly extraordinary recently, and that is they've actually become not a defendant, a respondent in a Supreme Court case that is looking at the impact of gerrymandering and what that means to our elections. That's a huge deal and something I'm very, very proud that they're willing to do. So I want to thank them for that work. So I would have to say that my political career is really my third career. I started out as a programmer, a computer programmer, systems analyst, and I did that for about 20 years, and then we moved to Asheville. And my son was in third grade when we moved here. He's in his 30s now. And we always knew he was going to struggle in school. But it was so obvious to his third grade teacher what was going on with him that she took me aside one day. She thought I was keeping it a secret. But she took me aside and asked me if I'd ever had him evaluated for autism. Well, needless to say, that changed my life, and I got involved, as Jessica mentioned, with the autism community, and served on the North Carolina Autism Society board, where I learned that not only was this a remarkable teacher, but that she had been trained by an organization called Division Teach. And Division Teach was created because parents with children on the autism spectrum
kept coming to Raleigh and demanding that the legislature do something to serve those children. And so that made a connection for me that I hadn't actually made before between public policy and people's lives. And so my second career, once I moved to Asheville, was working with, we have a wonderful and very robust nonprofit community here, and I served on the boards of some really great organizations, and I would encourage them to stand up for the people they served in the legislature and in Congress by getting involved in advocacy. And so one of the things I did as an advocate is I would help candidates that I believed in. And I would do fundraisers at my house. And I also became involved with an organization called Lillian's List. And Lillian's List is a statewide organization named for Lillian Exum Clements, who is a Buncombe County native. And she was the first woman elected to a state legislature from the South. And she won her primary before she had the right to vote. And I just found that to be a really remarkable story. So on the board, I'm serving on the board of Lillian's List, helping to support other candidates when the General Assembly, the state legislature, changed the way Buncombe County elected its county commissioners. And I was actually hosting an event for someone else when a current county commissioner came up to me, Patsy Keever, as a matter of fact. Girl, you might have been in the legislature by then. I don't remember.
I think I was in the legislature.
Yes.
And they changed it because I was banned.
That's
right.
Yes, exactly. And she asked me if I would run for county commissioner. So I figured, you know, if I'm gonna talk the talk, I gotta walk the walk. So I said yes, and I came in last. But you know, it worked out in the end because it gave me an opportunity to go to the General Assembly and to serve you all in the General Assembly as your senator. I've been there, this is my 6th year, and for 4 of those years, I served as the Democratic whip. Pardon me? 1 minute. And that was a leadership position, which gave me the responsibility for trying to convince other Democrats to vote in a way that is consistent, we believe, with democratic values, and to help get more Democrats elected. So I'm just delighted to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
My name is Kaylin Raper, and I will be introducing Deborah Campbell. Miss Deborah Campbell was born and grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She earned a bachelor's degree in urban planning and a master's degree in public administration from Middle Tennessee State University. She served as the planning director for the city of Charlotte for 10 years and then became the assistant city manager in Charlotte in 2014. Ms. Campbell is a member of the American Planning Association, the Urban Land Institute, and the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. In 2007, Governing Magazine named her Public Official of the Year. She began her work as Asheville City Manager in December 2018. Ms. Campbell was a Girl Scout.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. If my voice sounds like, and some of the young folks may not know, Barry White. It's the Asheville weather right now. Allergies are horrendous, and so please forgive me for the Barry White baritone. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. You heard a little bit about my background, but I will share with you a little bit more and a little bit more personal information about me. You know, the one thing about being new to Asheville, I think you heard that I came here December of 2018 is that lots of people want to interview you, and they want to talk to you. So I've gotten probably a little bit more information out about myself than I would like. But anyway, I'm gonna go deeper because I think I'm within safe space. So I have been engaged and involved in public service all my professional life and career. And here's why. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We were one street over from 9th Street, which has been renamed M.L. King Boulevard. And so just that statement alone should let you know that this area was relatively depressed. I didn't know that at the time because I had a limited purview in terms of where I could go, when I could go, and the things that I was exposed to. So my neighborhood was really, really small. I kept seeing people disappear. They just left, especially males, black males. And I was like, what is going on? And people would say, they've gone off to college. They didn't go off to college. They actually went off to prison. So originally it was like, I'm going to be an attorney. And after going to college and having 1 year in pre-law, it's like, no, I can't do that. But I'll go back again to my childhood. My mother died when I was 8. My father died when I was 16. So the community raised me. They prevented me from doing a whole lot of stuff that other people in my community were doing. And so my passion was to give back to people who selflessly said, here's a kid that we see potential in. Here's a kid that doesn't have parents. She had an older sister that actually got pregnant when she was 16, raised 4 other kids plus her own, including me. I'm the baby of 5 kids, and was just determined to see us succeed. And so if there's one thing about community service is about service. It's about looking back and bringing that community that either you left or you want to return back to, or quite frankly, that just need you. That's what public service is about. It's about the common good. It's about the community. It's not about individual accolades and titles, because I've had a lot of titles. When I was in the planning department, I came in as an entry-level planner. I worked my way up to the director, but that's not what's important to me. What's important to me is, did I have an impact on that community? Did I have an impact on somebody's life? That's what community service is about. It's not about titles. It's about impact. And so if I leave you with something, it is the search for having an impact, to touch somebody else's life and make it better. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kyrie Lee, and I will be introducing Miss Patsy Keeper. Miss Patsy Keeper was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. She earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Duke and a master's degree in education from Western Carolina University. Miss Keeper was a teacher for over 25 years and mainly taught 8th grade social studies and language arts. She has been involved in many community organizations, including the Buncombe County Library Board of Trustees, Buncombe County Board of Health, and the United Way. Miss Keever was served as a Buncombe County Commissioner and in the North Carolina House of Representatives. She is a member of the League of Women Voters, a past president of the Asheville Community Buncombe County League, and was a Girl Scout. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. You did a great job, thank you. I would also like to thank the League and the Girl Scouts for doing this today. I was a brownie, I remember the Smile song, that's the thing that I remember the most, and I think that was important, and I've got to go look up what the song was.
We
But-
can sing it for you.
I'm going to ask you to do that when we're all done. I would love for you to do that. But it was not until I started preparing for this panel today that I realized what an impact the League of Women Voters had had on me. It goes back to when I was 7 years old growing up in Charlotte, and my mother was very involved in the League of Women Voters at both the local and the state level. And when I was 7 years old, I got my picture in the Charlotte Observer. And for a 7-year-old to have your picture in the big paper was very exciting. It was an article about the age to vote. You had to be 21 to vote back then. There were 3 mothers, League members, and 3 daughters. And I was 7, and so I knew that 7 times 3 was 21, because that was, you're doing your multiplication tables. I was a little incensed that the other 2 were not 7. One was 6 and one was 8. But the lesson I learned from that is there's more than one way to get to the mathematical problem. It was a good lesson. And then my second picture that I ever had in a newspaper was also had to do with the League of Women Voters. I was in Asheville at that time. I had grown up, I had had babies, and I had needed the stimulation, the intellectual stimulation that sometimes young mothers need when they spend all their time with their babies, as lots of you know. So I joined the League of Women Voters and became very active and had my picture in the paper again. I don't remember if I was voter service chair or president at the time, but it didn't matter. The League was very important in my life at that time, and it gave me 2 more learning experiences that went on. As you know, I was a teacher. But the first one was as a League member, I went into Asheville High School and to help register the students, which I think is a wonderful idea, and voting, obviously was very important to me. And what just blew my mind, set me back, was the fact that African American students did not register. There were very few African American students who registered to vote, and I just could not understand that. And that's bothered me all these years, and it took me a while. This was pretty soon after integration started, and it took me a while to realize that they did not feel enfranchised by voting. They didn't think their vote mattered. It just was not something that their culture did or was rewarded for. And I hope that that has changed. I know that has changed, and I look at the legislature now, and we have so many wonderful African American leaders, and I'm sitting with 2 of them right now. And that is very heartwarming to me to realize that things have changed. But back in 1970, that was a problem for me. The other thing that I got to do as a League member was to moderate a locally televised debate between Billy Hendon and Jamie Clark, who were running. They ran against each other 2 or 3 times for Congress. But it was very exciting to be in that milieu and to be involved in an election of that size and of that importance. And I loved doing that. So, the League took me on, I remember meeting Marjorie Lockwood, who had started the League of Women Voters back in 1947. And Marjorie was a wonderful League member, and her thing was the environment and the French Broad River, cleaning up the French Broad River. And I took that with me. There's so many wonderful women that I met through the League who were doing important things, and they didn't think that they were doing important things. It's like, we all just go where our hearts lead us. And so that's one of the things I would say to you. Go where your heart leads you. What are you interested in? Go for it. I ended up teaching 8th grade. I taught everything from kindergarten to soldiers in the Army during the Vietnam years when my husband was in the Army. But the majority of my teaching was 8th grade students. I taught North Carolina history. And that was a subject and an age that I just loved. And we would take our students across the state on trips, and we would always go to Raleigh, stop in Raleigh, and go to the Museum of History, the Museum of Science, and the old Capitol building, and the Legislative building. And that's what really was exciting to me, the big brass doors and being up in the gallery with my students and pointing down there and talking about what was going on in the legislature, because so many of the things that affect our lives every day happen at the North Carolina state level. Terry Van Dyne, I have to say, is one of the best legislators I have ever seen. She's the hardest working woman, and I want to publicly acknowledge that. But, so, my students, you know, I taught them, and I would say to you that one of the most important things that you can do every time you have the chance is to vote, because everything is everything's not politically motivated, but everything depends on what happens at the elected level. All the laws that we have, all the things that we want to change, the things that we care about, politics is involved. And so your job is to know your candidates, to know your issues, and to get out and vote. And how you vote is your business. Of course, I would like you to vote myself, but you know, when I was teaching my students, I did not tell them how to vote, but we did have mock legislative sessions, we did have mock elections, we did all of those things. I wanted them to feel it in their hearts like I did. And how important it is to be part of the process. Well, a lot of them just had a very negative feeling about it. How am I doing, 1 minute?
Yeah.
Or
That's being gracious.
You are being gracious. So let me just say, I ran for office the first time in 1992 to prove to my students that elected officials are simply people who care about the common good, and that anybody can run for office. And it was one of the most fun things of my life, that first campaign, and my younger daughter was in high school, and Robertson, the whole parking lot was smeared with Keever for commissioner signs, and I have another little story about that, but my time is up. Thank you so much.
I'm Amanda Teague, and I'm introducing Julian Banks. Miss Banks is a native of Asheville and graduate of Clyde A. Owen High School. She began working for the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office in 1996. In 1998, Miss Banks completed Detention Officer School and worked as a detention officer for several years. In 2004, she in the basic law enforcement training course at AB Tech and graduated in 2005. 2006, Miss Banks began working in the Court Security Division, where she is currently a sergeant.
Thank you, Amanda. I am Jillian Banks, and I am a native here from Asheville, North Carolina. I do have two beautiful children here with me, my girls. But I want to let you all know that I heard everybody went to college. I did not. And I did not because I didn't want to, you know. I felt once I graduated, I said, I'm not going to waste my mama's money. I'm just not going to go, you know. But I knew I had to do something. I knew I couldn't just not do something, you know. So I went, and my actual first job was at the YWCA because I thought I wanted to be a teacher. That was not what I wanted to do. I love children, but dealing with babies, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I got an opportunity to go to the jail, and I started working there. And first it was part-time, and I was just like, well, you know, this is okay. But I finally got a passion for it. And once I got that passion, I actually started wanting to do more. So I started going through school, you know, as far as the jail school and BLET, and wanting to make a difference because I see so much, because I grew up in D'Iberville, which is the projects. And I don't know if you all know that, but I grew up in D'Iberville. It wasn't good, you know, but I had a strong mom, and she wanted more for me, so therefore I wanted more for my children. So growing up and just seeing my passion for what I do makes a difference to other people. And I was telling Elena that how you treat people, you know, with respect. Inmates, the female inmates that I work with, I love them. Yes, they've done some crazy things. They may be on drugs, they may, you know, drink a lot, they may have prostituted themselves, they may have done a whole lot of things. But the respect that they gave me and the respect that I gave them, it spoke volumes, you know. And I still see some of those inmates now, and they're like, hey, Miss Jill, how are you? You know, and it's amazing because they're not where they used to be. You know, we would have talks, and you don't have to be here. You can be better, you can do better. You know, they just needed someone to talk to them sometimes. And that's all. Just, if I can give you anything, treat people the way you want to be treated. Always show respect to people, you know. Show that you care. Even though they may not treat you that way, still show them you care, you know, and that's gonna go a long way. Your kindness goes a long way. And as far as going a long way, me treating people, I work with Judge Young I sit on the board with Sorkel, and that's the program where women, men alike have DSS cases with, you know, Department of Social Services. Their children have been taken from them and they're fighting to get their babies back. But they're also fighting addiction. And it's hard to see that because their babies are gone, but they're still trying their best to get their babies back, but they can't beat that addiction, you know. And so sitting on the board with Judge Young, it's amazing to see the drive that she has, and it makes you want to do more for people, you know, to help them get their children back. So that, like I said, treating those people, even when I'm sitting in court and I'm listening to the stories and hearing what's going on, it touches my heart to see so many people go through. I didn't go through that, you know. I wasn't never on drugs. I've never smoked, never drank, any of that. But to see that, you know, and they're looking at me like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, well, I don't have that addiction. Food is my addiction. So I can relate, you know, in a certain sense, you know, I like to eat, you know. But, and I tell them the best thing to do is think about yourself. You can't fight an addiction by thinking about other people. You have to think about yourself at this point, because right now it's about you. Get clean. Get clean for you, then you can worry about somebody else, you know. So just treat people the way you want to be treated, and I promise you it'll take you far, okay?
Hi, I'm Isabel Morris, and I am introducing Judge Susan Dotson-Smith. She was raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. She earned a bachelor's degree at Duke University and a Juris Doctorate from Wake Forest School of Law. She moved to the Asheville area in 1991 with her husband. Judge Dotson-Smith was in private practice for 20 years. She was appointed to the 28th Judicial District Court in 2012 to fill a vacancy that has since been elected as a judge. She currently serves on the board for the Association of District Court Judges and Buncombe County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council and the 28th Judicial District Bar Pros Bono Committee. Judge Dotson-Smith is a member of the League of Women Voters. She served as a Girl Scout leader and assistant, and both her daughters were in Girl Scouts. Thank you.
So you're going to notice that I'm not good monitoring my time, so someone else will have to call on me. I am thrilled to be here and want to thank the Girl Scouts and the League for this event. I was telling one of my colleagues that I celebrated 1999 and I am a planner. A lot of lawyers are planners, and so I had always assumed I would make a big party when it was December 31st, 1999. The other thing for me that was of that stature was going to be 2020. Because the 100th year celebration for the right to vote is a phenomenal thing to celebrate. And to get to do that with these colleagues, some of whom I know for a while and well, and some I am learning to know more every day, and then to do it with you all, our community out there, is significant to me. So as I thought through this week what I wanted to say, a couple things first came to mind. One is, in looking back at the Girl Scout promise, it's very similar to an oath public officials take to be responsible and respect and to be in service to our country. And for me, the Constitution's not inconsistent therewith because we're lawyers and we add legalese. The other thing is the Girl Scout law is really got some pretty good similarities with the Judicial Code of Conduct, which governs my life ever since I took that oath. And there are things in there like respect and dignity. There are things in there about being honest and fair. And there are traits such as using your resources wisely, which we have to do in the judiciary and in public service as part of our transparency and accountability to the public. So that means that every one of you who has sworn to your own pledge, promise, and law has the beginning fundamental blocks of being in public service and being committed to making our country better. And so with that, I want to tell you about, I think, 5 points that, in looking at my journey to where I have gotten to so far, I think resonate in trying to figure out your job and your career. The first one would be get informed. And as you've already heard, I do have some educational background, but I need you to understand that I had 2 teachers as parents. I had 3 teachers as grandparents and 1 preacher. So I never didn't know that I needed to do as good as I could academically. I will tell you what you might not know, which is that in elementary school I had a lisp and a speech impediment. So I spent a lot of time in elementary school trying to get that to a point where I might like to speak and use my voice. I will tell you that in high school and in middle school, I had some bully moments. I was an outcast. I was not a Girl Scout because I was a nonconformist, and y'all wear the same thing every day a week, and that's not me. So as a girl, I didn't go there. When I got to Duke, which was my undergrad, I had entered a great university that believed you should track pre-law, pre-business, pre-med, and I was not aware enough of myself to understand that maybe a different path, like my husband's master's in public administration, might have been the next choice for me. But I was a history major, and so I went into law. And I tell you that because the next thing I want you to understand, other than being informed, and lawyers love to be educated. I started this morning at a CLE, which is a continuing education program over at the Renaissance Hotel for the family law section. We never stop learning. Now, the second thing I want to tell you about is find your passion. And I'm so happy that you all talked before me because several of you have mentioned follow your heart, find your passion. If you do that, then you will excel at your career. And for me, I have a couple of passions. I love to dance. I love being in groups. But I cannot deny when I look at my history, term papers I wrote, research projects I did, things that made me stir, that there is something in my body that cannot handle the injustices when people are treated unfairly. And when I was in high school, I was the poor faculty student at a private school. Great opportunity, but I understood then the difference in wealth issues and economic disparity and the haves and the have-nots. I was the only white member in the Winston-Salem Youth Council my senior year in high school, and I was at private country clubby prep school, and the rest of my board were in the public project schools. And we kind of surmounted it. We launched our first campaign and threw out the popular folks, and we reigned that year. Very different path, but it was important to me because I see differences. And so when I started looking at how I wanted to change the world, part of the law school world ended up being bankruptcy and the consumer right fight. So the kind of, how many of you have heard of David and Goliath? Raise your hand. Okay. So in my mind, in bankruptcy, if I'm representing a debtor, that's David. And the big old company sometimes was Goliath in my private practice, and so that was sort of my perspective on it. So that was where I found some passion, and that's continued with me today, and it serves me well. Third thing, quickly, is to identify your skills and your gifts, and this is really an important part of my journey, and that is that once I was in law, I could have stayed in private practice forever, but I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to break, because I wanted to try to be an at-home mommy for a little bit before my kids went into school. It was not a complete fit for me, so I went back full-time when they went to school. I have models in my household, one who loves being at home with her kids and one who did not. It didn't do well. So I had 2 mentors I could use during that time. But I became an adjunct teacher at Mars Hill and taught business law. I became an adjunct teacher at UNCA. And I was able to use that then to go into a non-legal career, which was a risk, and become a fundraiser for one of our charities, one of our public organizations. It's called On Track, but Financial Consumer Credit Counseling. That was the first time that I understood that I had more to offer than academics. And I say that to you because if I had stayed in private practice, staying an attorney, I would never have recognized that I was able to contribute more things than just my academic brain. So learning those gifts and skills, wrapping those up together with your passion, brings me to the last part of this, which is risk-taking. And this is an area where I think as girls, it's really important for you to understand that you may have not been trained, maybe Girl Scouts have been, but not every girl is trained to take risks the way that boys might be trained to take risks. And yet, the opportunity for me to be a judge would not have been present if I didn't take the risk of starting to pick and work on a political campaign. The opportunity for me to be in this position would not have happened if I hadn't risked talking to people who I didn't think would ever talk to me. The first time I walked into Terry's house, I was pretty flabbergasted because it's a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood. And it wasn't where I came from, and it wasn't something I really understood well for me. But I needed to take that risk because she's an amazing, worthwhile person that I met when she was volunteering with Pisgah Legal Services and was Volunteer of the Year. And I knew Pisgah Legal Services did good work for our community and for those in economic need. And so I tried my best to go, I need to take this risk. I had less than 24 hours to decide if I wanted to be a judge on the appointment list. I had to take the plunge. They are showing me the time, so I'm gonna wrap it all up. You gotta wanna contribute to the world with your intentions and your actions. So, inform yourself, pursue your passion, identify your skills and gifts, take the risk, make the world a better place. I know you will. Thanks.